Good morning, Bix Weir, roadtoroad.com with your morning horn of Z's, your sip of juice. Yes, it is juicing week of the cleanse, of the reboot, and I feel good. Down 13 pounds, I think, 12 or 13. And we're in the final stretch. Everybody who did this crazy thing for the last 2 weeks, 1 week left, less than a week, I'm sure you're feeling great now. At least your body is feeling great. The mind game continues. I was watching Cooking Channel again last night. Yeah, gotta stop doing that. Food looks so good. But juice is the same thing. When you think about it, your body's trying to get all the nutrients of food. There you go. Just juice it out. Your body doesn't have to digest it or anything. It just goes right into the system. Lots of great feedback to Amy. Amy's excited to hear from you guys. If you're on Telegram, make sure you chime in and tell everybody how well you're doing. Raw21reboot.com. Go check it out. You can start right now. Or go to Road to Ruta. Go to roadtoroad.com to the public road page right here. The second item down, Raw Food Reboot. And it gives you the link to Amy's website right here. It is free. It is a free service. I'm trying to teach her how to be a capitalist. She refuses. So she gives it away for free. Go check it out. And don't forget to sign up for the blog posts. Blog posts are great. All kinds of great tips. And the last one was a couple days ago, Raw Juice Week. If you're on the cleanse, make sure you read the blogs because she gives a lot of recipes, tips, helpful hints, shit like that. Stuff like that, excuse me. We're talking repo today. Yes, the repo is key. Why is the repo key? That's where the distress in the derivatives market is happening. If we want freedom, we need to flush the old system down the drain. That's what repo is all about. Started on September 11th. Yes, exactly. September 11th, same time it started in 2008, September 11th. You didn't see the 10% jump in repos until a couple days later when it jumped to 10%. The 11th, I think, was a Thursday, and then the Monday, you had the jump to 10% repos. The repo market is extremely important. It is the largest market in the world. If you want to know where all the derivatives are traded, look no further than the repo market. It is a con. It is a manufactured scheme. Part of what Catherine Austin Fitts is talking about when she's talking about the missing $21 trillion. It's all being reshuffled through the repo market, through the DTCC. How many times have I screamed about the DTCC? I did an interview with Sean about the DTCC years ago when they flooded the DTC vault in New York City, 55 Water Street. $33 trillion worth of paper assets were flooded. It's the way they got out of their problems. Go check out that interview, very important. But why am I saying the DTCC? Because the DTCC holds all these assets. They're the custodian. And the FICC, which I talked about yesterday, I'm going to talk about a little more today. The FICC is a subsidiary of the DTCC. All right, here's what's going on. Just today, yes, more repos. Repos haven't ended. These are required so the banks stay in business till tomorrow. If they were gone, poof, everything's gone. 58 billion on the overnight was needed, and then they put on a new term repo of 32 billion. I think 35 is their max. So they're just about maxing out. I'm going to show you guys the private section. This is actually the Patreon. I post this on Patreon, and I post it on the private road, both of them. It's my repo watch. Where we are right now, this is what it looks like. So there's the 58.6 and the term repo. That's the term repo expiry date. We did have the last 3 days, the total has gone down because we had some expiries from that big end of year thing that I'll get to in a second also. So on Friday, we had an expiry of 56 billion and no added repos. So that's going to run it down pretty good. They should all be going away, but most of them are flipped and turned. So there was another expiry today of 35 billion. So they had to add back 32.2 billion. Had they not done that, the rates would have gone up, and that's what they're trying to protect. One of the things. Also, the rehypothecated assets behind the scenes. So this is a plug number, the 1.5. They usually go 1.5, 7.5. That number doesn't come out until later today. I just plug it in and then I revise it later. It'll probably be 1.5, 1.6, something like that. But I'll get that in there, and that's where we are in the linear graph. A little jump down because the $56 billion term repo expired, but we are still headed strong and upwards. And I do expect these numbers to increase greatly, especially by the end of the quarter. And I want to talk about, I talked about this a couple days ago, the repo market. This is from Yahoo Finance. Repo market is so broken that the Fed wants to change it. I talked about this. They want to get the hedge funds in there, so they can borrow directly from the Fed. Could you imagine that? And the reality is they're already doing it through these things called sponsored repos, where JP Morgan borrows it and then lends it to the hedge funds. But JP Morgan knows that all this collateral is bad. So JP Morgan's saying, oh, what can I do? What can I do? They've got the FICC to back them and say it's the FICC loaning these securities and not JP Morgan and friends, which is complete bullshit. The FICC is a clearinghouse. But, and I'll show you in a second. So the Fed comes out and says, we might change the policy to have hedge funds be able to directly access the Fed. Illiquidity is the U.S. repo markets has the U.S. repo market spooked in the second half of 2019, and the U.S. Federal Reserve is considering a major policy change that could help remedy the situation. However, the potential changes could come with some major political fallout. The potential fix. Here we go. The Fed is reportedly considering completely overhauling the current repo market and instead allowing the Fed, allowing the repo market clearinghouse, the FICC, to lend directly to small banks and hedge funds. This change would essentially eliminate the larger bank middleman from the process. Oh my God. The FICC does not own these assets. It's a middleman between the banks behind it. So JP Morgan gets the FICC to say, okay, you go in there and you do the borrowing because we don't want the credit risk. You're our backstop for the credit risk as the clearinghouse. Well, the FICC doesn't have this kind of money. They don't have any, I don't know what kind of assets they have, but they're lending other people's assets. So the DTCC is now in the lending business, not just the custodian business. And the DTCC, because the DTCC is where all the fraud happens. All the rehypothecation of assets, which means 2-3 owners of each treasury certificate, things like that. It is such a cluster. It's out of control. So the Fed's solution to the repo problem is going to say, hey, let's just run it all through the FICC, aka the DTCC, so that nobody can see the problems behind this. That's what they're hiding. In theory, this change would reduce uncertainty and risk and reduce the chances a freeze in the repo market could disrupt the financial system. However, providing wealthy hedge fund managers with a direct path to the Fed, lending via the FICC, might not sit well with the average American. So we're lending people like BlackRock directly from the Fed. The cheap money, cheap overnight money. That's why they love the repo market. It's cheapest money. And then they do their derivatives. They'll leverage it up 100 to 1. Oh, it's just a nightmare. If you want to destroy the system, that's a good way to do it. Maybe that's why they're doing it. So here's something interesting. Now, this is a great, I've been playing around with this site since I discovered it. I didn't discover it. Other people were already looking at it. It's the Office of Financial Research. This is out of the Treasury Department. It breaks down who's playing in the repo market and how they're playing. And they just released, on the 15th, released what was going on at the end of the year. Remember the big repo craziness? Talked about this a little yesterday, but let's dig a little deeper. So here's what was going on. Obviously, huge numbers. Over the last 3 years have been out of control on the repo market. That's what the cheap interest rates, crazy lending. I mean, you want to know where the bubble is coming from everywhere. It's right here. Borrowing cheap and then investing in the stock market and pumping the market and throwing crazy money everywhere. But this is the cheap money. So if you look at the repo market, the biggest part of it is the treasury repurchases. And then you click on the details of that, drill down. And here's what is really interesting. See here, this is obviously it would be a little spike at the December 31st. That's the time they needed all the repo money because it's the end of the year, end of the quarter, all that stuff that they were talking about. But look at everybody kind of decreased the amount they put in, which is what they were afraid of, except this. The Fed put in a little more. That's the Fed, 47 billion. But look at this. It's the orange line. The FICC put in 278 billion. You want to know who bailed out the banks? The FICC, who has no assets. All they did was put a guarantee on some crazy rehypothecated assets of other people. That's insane. Look at this. FICC has only started in the last year and a half. They've only put anything substantial into the repo market. FICC has no assets of their own. Well, I wouldn't say no, but they don't hold. They're a clearinghouse. They're holding assets for other entities. And now they're providing credit support because the counterparties are defunct. And they're rehypothecating assets behind the scenes. It is absolutely insane. But here's the coolest thing about this site. So the FICC, which is only a clearinghouse, but apparently they're allowed to post collateral for the repo market, other people's collateral. And you click on the details of the FICC and you can find out who it is. And remember, that article I was just talking about, the Fed is talking about allowing hedge funds to access the repo market. So here it is. This is what the FICC was made of. JP Morgan, of course, 47 billion. So not only was JP Morgan in on this part of it, which they are right gray. Whereas JP Morgan is purple. So they put in 28.6 billion plus they needed a guarantee from the FICC of another 47 billion. Now the FICC, I don't know how they are guaranteeing. They're a clearinghouse, but they have no assets behind them. And they're a complete fraud because they're owned by the DTCC, which we know is a fraud. So anyway, this is how the game is played. But look at this. The next highest, Fidelity, in the money market funds, that makes sense, right? Federated, Goldman Sachs, obviously they got their hands in everything. Wells Fargo, but look at this one. $46 billion for BlackRock? A hedge fund? What happened to this? The Fed is reportedly considering completely overhauling the current repo system to allow hedge funds. They're already doing it. It's right here. They're just being covered up by the FICC, which has no assets. It's a pass-through entity. It is insane. But it's so important that this gets exposed. It's insane that these people are allowed to do this, but they got to keep that system going. Here's what the FICC is. It's a DTCC subsidiary. It's the Fixed Income Clearing Corporation. It was created in 2003 to reduce costs and give DTCC customers a common approach to fixed income transaction processing. The Government Securities Division of the Fixed Income FICC, a subsidiary of the DTCC, provides real-time trade matching, clearing, risk management, and netting of trades. That's the key, netting. That's the same thing they do with stocks. When you buy a stock, your brokerage house does not buy it and put it in your name. They put it in a pool, and they just have to report the netting at the end of the day. And this netting is the quadrillion dollar derivative market netted by the FICC. Oh my God, these criminals are out of control. Anyway, yeah, that's what's going on. Why do I harp on it all the time? That would be because it is so important to end the old system. The old system is corrupt, crooked. We're being robbed. And now they're robbing from us and giving to hedge funds to leverage 100 to 1 so that their buddies can be multi-trillionaires instead of just multi-billionaires. It's getting real bad, Mike. Real bad. All right. If you guys want more information, go to roadtoroto.com. Check out the Economist word jumble. I'm getting ready to post my analysis, my original, that's a beginning analysis YouTube on the private road. So if you want to join the private road, click subscribe today. You will get one Very token. I'm going to do a talk on Very. Yes, I do think there's something going on behind the scenes more than what they're saying, and I have a lot of little dots I've connected, especially the fact that no veritasium was given to the law firm that's liquidating Reggie's asset. All that veritasium was kept by the government, kept frozen, and we don't know who owns it. Reggie, is it the government? I've always said if there is a crash, veritasium could fix these exchange problems, fix the repo problem, because it's peer-to-peer capital transactions. There's no funny business if you insert veritasium into that equation. It's just two people dealing with each other through veritasium. He was implementing it at the Jamaican Stock Exchange. He had all these deals, and then the government shut him down. And the government are holding his veritasium. And they basically took everything he owned, like everything. Not just the veritasium that they're keeping, plus the $10 million fine. They took all his Ethereum, took all his Bitcoin that he raised in the ICO. Who knows how much that was? You could probably do a calculation because he only sold 2 million tokens in his ICO. It was before the SEC came out with any guidelines at all, before the DAO, and they literally destroyed Reggie, unless there's some other deal going on, which I'll talk about. Anyway, join the private road and you'll get all this stuff, as well as all the member area stuff. Right now, the fear greed indicators right in the middle for cryptos. So it'll be an interesting week, and keep an eye on the stock market this week. We've hit Martin Armstrong's turning point. So who knows what's going to happen. Talk to you later.